This is the Military Bottom Line Podcast, episode 90.
But it was definitely a reality check when you get there and you're like, wait a second, I only have a semester left of college. Why am I here? Why am I, what am I doing here?
Welcome to the Military Bottom Line Podcast, where we learn from veterans and those currently serving how to make the most out of a military contract. We're here to motivate, inspire, and help you leverage your service to positively impact you professionally, personally, and financially during your military career and beyond. What's going on, everybody? Thanks for tuning in today. Today, I want to introduce you to Lisa Benson. Lisa is an Army veteran, joined the Army in 2000 to get college tuition paid for, and like most people that joined in 2000, was quite surprised when 9/11 happened and they found themselves deployed to the Middle East in Iraq. Lisa did a year-long deployment in Iraq from 04 to 05. Had a crazy experience where they hit an IED, and she continued on to serve a total of 9 years in the Army Reserves and has transitioned out, and like most of us, kind of jumped around, did some massage therapy, did some other business stuff, some marketing, and now she's in her own business, and she's operating her own business, doing business coaching, helping people systematize their business and be more effective and more efficient. And so I really enjoyed my time talking to Lisa. I think she has a lot to share, and she gave me a little bit of free coaching, a little insight on what she does and how I can improve. And so I hope you guys enjoy the show, and hopefully Lisa has something to offer you guys. Stay tuned and enjoy. Good evening, Lisa. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
Great. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm excited to hear your story. I see that you're quite the entrepreneur, so I'm super excited as, I guess an entrepreneur myself, to kind of pick your brain, hear your story, and see where you're up to.
I am so ready to hear about what made you come up with all this, but also give you some ideas that I have as far as marketing, but also give a little bit of my backstory and how I got to where I am.
Totally. Yeah. I'd love to start kind of from the beginning, why and when you joined the military in the first place and what that looked like for you.
So I joined the military in 2000. I followed my younger brother in. Our parents got divorced. I was going to be a junior in college, and we didn't have enough money. Between the two of them, we made too much money, so I had to pull out loans rather than aid. So yeah. I went in so that I could get the college money, and I was supposed to go to the Language Institute, and they told me that was going to be 2 years of training. And I said, oh no, what's the shortest training with the most amount of money, which was the 88 mic. And that kind of got me into a world that I wouldn't necessarily be part of. But it was really neat to see all the people and get to meet all the people that I wouldn't necessarily have connected with if I would have gone to the Language Institute.
Did you say India Mike?
88 Mike. So I was a truck driver.
Truck driver. Okay. I'm not familiar with
Army. And really what I ended up doing is being a truck driving instructor for the military. And then I taught ANOC and BNOC besides, which is basic non-commissioned officer and advanced non-commissioned officers training. So for those who aren't Army, that's E6 and E7 training.
Gotcha. Okay. I'm always curious to talk to people like that joined pre 9/11, but like lapsed over into the GWAT. And, to join in 2000 for school, we've been at peace for as long as what was that like, from your perspective? You're in the Army and 9/11 hits, and you're kind of vulnerable at that point.
Oh, you're really vulnerable. And we had multiple times where we were told, be ready for deployment. Obviously all the calls were coming in. We knew we were going to have to be ready. I actually got told that I was going to deploy on my grandfather's birthday.
Oh, wow.
So it was an interesting experience. I mean, I was able to come home and talk to him, and we had a lot of things. We were able to connect. And actually, he just passed away this past December. So I had a long time with him to talk about all the things. And he was former Air Force. He was retired Air Force colonel. So he is kind of our gateway, and as was our father, who was in the Army.
Yeah. I feel like I see a lot of people, a lot of young people today that maybe think about the military, but then they're like, oh, like China and like the next war kind of thing. You know, what's your perspective? Is that enough to dissuade somebody from joining right now?
It could be, but they could also tell you you're just going to join. So do you want to do it on your own and get some money, or do you want to get told you have to do it?
Yeah. That is very true. All right. So you end up being a truck driver, which is definitely different than you set out to do. But ultimately, you still got your college paid for. Was the truck driver route? How did that fare for you?
Well, as most of the time I was an instructor, which was nice. But when you deploy, you don't deploy as a truck driving instructor.
Yeah.
We were in a transportation unit that was attached to the Big Red One. And we went we were driving throughout the Sunni Triangle. I was a Mark 19 gunner and a 50 cal gunner for most of the convoys.
No kidding.
And then towards the end, we pivoted and I ended up being a convoy commander's driver. And I flopped between both roles, and ultimately it was more fun to sit in the truck and talk to people than it was to talk to yourself while you're in the back of the truck.
Sure. Yeah. What was that? I mean, when you showed up to Iraq for the first time, were you like, what the heck am I doing here? How did I get here? I was just looking for some GI Bill college education. Like, walk us through that mental shift a little bit.
The mental shift was we got to Kuwait and we were there for a month.
Okay.
And all I can think of is, where is the air conditioning? That was the first, like, what is going on here? We fell in on some other people's equipment, so we had to do a whole bunch of repairs. And you're just like, if the dominoes could stack any other way, it wouldn't have been in our favor. We just got very lucky. And we had quality mechanics that helped get us on the road, who ended up fixing most of the vehicles. We were stationed in Balad, which is Anaconda, for those that don't know the actual city that's there. And we spent, they actually ended up doing a lot of the maintenance for most of the vehicles that came into to any motor pool, because they were that good at what they did.
Gotcha.
But it was definitely a reality check when you get there and you're like, wait a second, I only have a semester left of college.
No
Why am I here? Why am I, what am I doing here? But then you put it aside. In reality, your family's there. The family at home is your family at home, but the family that you have to serve with is there, and everybody's there for whatever reason that brought them there. So all you can do is unify and keep going.
Yeah. So did you join the reserves, the Guard, active duty?
I was in the reserve and got activated, but my husband was active duty for, he just retired a year or 2 years ago.
Nice.
I was just looking for that short amount of money so that I could go to school. Then I really debated on going active because I just loved it. I was very good in the military. I liked the structure of it. I liked the way it kept me in line, kept me focused. I went from getting by in school to being 4.0 valedictorian. There's a lot of things that changed because of all the things that I learned in the military.
Totally. So you started out by, doing the 1 week in a month, 2 weeks a year while going to college. And then 9/11 happens. You're still in college and you start getting this like deployment kind of thing hovering over you.
Yeah. Sitting at the desk when I was in American literature, when the planes hit.
No kidding.
And I will never forget, because my husband joined and left for basic training on 9/10/2001, and we didn't hear from him. We knew his plane had got rerouted from Atlanta, but we didn't know if he landed in or from Buffalo to Atlanta. We didn't know if he landed in Atlanta. We knew nothing until 5 days later when we got a message from him.
No kidding. Wow. So I imagine at that point in time, they don't really care. I mean, you had a semester left of college. My mind would have been thinking like, okay, can I commission before I start doing this? Or, what are my options here? Was that like a thought process? Was that an opportunity, or were you were just told like, hey, this is how this is working out?
Midway through, they asked me if I wanted to go green to gold.
Really? That's pretty cool.
And at that point I was done with the military. I wasn't, that was the mindset. I ended up staying an extra 4 years, but to show started out as a private, private first class, like most of us do with a little bit of an education. By the time I left Iraq, which was 3 years later, I was staff sergeant promotable, and they were already putting me forth to be at E7. So
wow.
I was good at what I did. I liked what I did. I really valued it. And I didn't know if I wanted to be an officer.
Yeah.
If we were to do it all over again, my husband and I would have switched places, and I would have stayed the 20 and he would have got out.
Yeah. Yeah. Hindsight's 2020.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would have gone Air Force.
Yeah. Well, wouldn't we all? I think we all learned that lesson. Day late, dollar short.
That is for sure.
Yeah. So what program were you using at that point in time? I don't know if it's the same now. What were you using to get tuition paid for while in the reserves?
It was just I want to say TAP. It was tuition assistance at the time. It was just a regular GI Bill.
Okay.
And then when I got back to do my master's, I was able to use the post 9/11.
Got it. Okay. So
I know there's better systems out there since my husband was able to go through them, and I'd love to hear your take because I started listening to your podcast on it.
Yeah. Well, these things are always changing, especially since 2001. A lot of the programs, well, they've altered a little bit. But one thing I often, I don't want to say I steer people away, but like the reserve education benefit isn't like that great from what I understand of it. Did it, I don't know, again, it's been a little bit, did it cover all of your tuition at that point in time or only partial?
It allowed me to cover, so the repayment covered what I owed, which was fantastic. And that really was a big part of the goal. But when I went to finish it, I was actually able to get the active duty because I spent 18 months on active duty for that deployment, plus basic training in AIT. So I qualified for the active duties version of the post 9/11. So we weren't afforded at that time voc rehab and things like that unless you had the disability claim already in place.
Yeah.
But my husband was able to use voc rehab, and when he was in the Army at one time, they called it terminal leave. I don't know what they call it now, but as you're processing out, he actually was able to use voc rehab and a couple other things, and they paid for his education. He got his master's degree from Baylor. Then he was able to, what was it? They did a work study for him so that he could basically work for a company for the last 6 months of his time in the military. So any debt that we had, we were obviously able to pay off because he went to all the trainings and listened to everything they had to say and used everything to the nth degree, which I wish every person would do.
Yeah. But it sounds like SkillBridge probably, where you're basically given orders to go work for somebody else for the last 6 months of your military contract.
Somewhat, yeah. But SkillBridge is pretty awesome. I know not everybody thinks it is. There's some groups out there that are. If you're afforded an education and you have the opportunity to take it and you're not paying for it, unless it's going to teach you to hurt somebody, do it.
Yeah.
What is it going to? It's going to help you grow. It's going to help you learn. It's going to help you figure out who you want to be and what you want to do.
Yeah. I tend to agree. I think, especially if you're uncertain of the direction you want to go, it's unlikely that the opportunity cost is greater than a free education. So I think, unless you have a clear direction and clear vision for your life, I think it's definitely worth the time. But so do you feel like that you were able to get everything that you wanted out of the military, in the sense, I mean, it was for education only, and it sounds like you got your bachelor's, your master's, probably maybe more?
And I would love to I have the opportunity to get more because I finally, after 14 years of fighting, got my veterans benefits. So I've got my disability ratings, which was amazing. But
14 years?
It took 14 years to fight for it.
Oh my goodness. Why?
My own stupidity to start. I will full out put that out there. Because my husband was active duty, I was getting my medical care from TRICARE.
Yeah.
And not submitting everything to the VA. So it was pretty cyclical fight for a while. And then we brought the senator in, and all of a sudden things started happening. Plus, with the burn pit registry and all of those things, it just showed that it was legitimate what I was claiming. It wasn't just me hearing everyone else's stories. So I was able to do that. But I get the training and tuition assistance from his disability and his veteran status, and I get it from mine. So I got more money to spend on education, and I can't wait.
Yeah, right on.
I love learning.
Right on. So what'd you get your undergrad in?
First one was in English literature, which, if you're not intending to be a professor, is kind of like throwing your money into the wind. Mm-hmm. It wasn't my money, at least.
Did that help in the Army at all as a truck driver instructor?
Oh, definitely not. Because I love the people that I served with, but most of them didn't know a lot of the people I was talking about, and didn't spend time with Chaucer and didn't spend time with Shakespeare. They thought that was a movie, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And that's just because of what they were exposed to. Now, with my second bachelor's was in management, and that definitely helped with the military. And then the master's in public administration was because I wanted to help veterans. From the time I got back from Iraq, I mean, still, even today, the underlying core of who I am and what I want to do is help support the people who served. Because a lot of them got in like I did and didn't intend to spend time overseas and didn't intend to deploy. Granted, it's always in the back of your mind. It's never prior to 9/11. We're like, what's going to happen? I'm going to activate for a month and maybe somewhere because of a natural disaster. You didn't think you were going to, you didn't think you were going overseas. You didn't think 9/11 was going to happen. Whoever would have thought that?
Totally. Yeah. So what year did you deploy?
04, 05. So we're on our 20th anniversary of it.
Yeah, no kidding. Wow.
Yeah.
And you got back from deployment, and was that at the end of your contract, or where were you in your obligation then?
I had another year because I did the 6 and 2.
Okay.
And then I decided to stay active reserve for 3 years. So I served a total of 9 because I knew once I went past that 9, I was staying for 20 because you reach the crest, you're going downhill from there.
Yeah.
I also knew I was back on the circle for deployment as a E6 promotable female in the transportation. You're on your way. Mm-hmm. You've pretty much got your plane ticket in hand.
Okay. How did that deployment, how do you feel like that shaped you?
It made me a little more weary of people, even though I loved who I served with in general. There were, I had some situations over there that were not less than comfortable for me and the people that were around me. We had a stalker. My roommate and I had a stalker who one day we were just opening the shades and he's staring in the windows.
Like another American? Or
another American soldier.
No kidding.
And then there's just some interesting things that it's just a microsect of society. So all those people we have out there, we've just got them in a smaller group. But I shouldn't say it taught me to be weary. It taught me to listen to my intuition. I know you've probably heard that if your pucker factor's up, you need to look around you and see what's up.
Yeah.
Not everybody knows that one, but we use that one a lot.
Yeah.
It also made me relish my alone time because so often you couldn't be anywhere without somebody. That now I enjoy just, sitting in a corner reading a book with nobody.
Yeah.
No noise, no nothing, just me with my book and be able to just relax and not have to be present for anybody but me.
Totally. Yeah. You indicated, you had a story or your experience in Iraq that I think, just the short story would paint a picture of, what it's like being a truck driver in Iraq in 04, 05. And I don't know if you want to take a moment to kind of just share that piece.
Oh, yes. So we had a lot of missions, but the one that stands out most for me as I was a convoy commander's driver. It was the last mission we were on. You know that you're excited about getting home. You stop paying attention. You don't have your head in a swivel.
It's been a year, right?
Say again?
It's been a year that you've been there at this point?
Yeah, it's been a year. The new unit was supposed to take over, and they were afraid to drive because our typical route was to Mosul, to Fallujah, to Bakiba, which is across the Tigris from where Anaconda is. So if anybody looks at the triangle, this is kind of Bayap and Baghdad and all that stuff. That was our main area. And we're driving down the road, and this is a road we've gone every day.
Yeah.
Pretty much every day or every other day. And, it's an area, you notice that there's a little dust up on the ground, but you don't think anything of it. And we had this thing that's called ironwood or cottonwood, depending on which version it was. But at that time, it's ironwood, which was an up-armored Humvee that jams the radios. So he had to relay something to the TOC. So he flipped the switch, and when he flipped the switch, our truck blew up.
No kidding.
Dust everywhere. We couldn't see. We couldn't do anything. Once we realized the three of us that were in our truck, which was the only one affected, were okay. The first thing, which I didn't mention this when we were talking earlier, is the first thing I asked the convoy commander is, what do you want to eat when we get home? And I didn't mean home back to Balad, because that's just defect, nastiness. Yeah. And he said Taco Bell. So that was like our joke. And we were fortunate that our gunner bent down to have a cigarette, because had he not bent down to have a cigarette, he wouldn't be alive.
Wow.
So I'm a smoke them if you got them kind of girl, not because I want you to have a cigarette, but if that's what's going to save your life and my life, you smoke them. So we kind of had. It was a weird story. But it definitely shows you that there's just moments that things that you normally go through that you see when you're not paying attention. Complacent. I think when you went outside the wire, it says complacency kills. I think that was everybody's. Yeah. Is today the day was the big sign that was outside of the base when we would leave.
Yeah.
But in general, we were not lazy. We were looking at the future. We weren't looking at the right now. And because we weren't living in the now, we could have almost not made it to the future.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, a year deployed, last mission. I think, everybody's ready to go home. And it's just crazy. Yeah. I mean, so you had the jammer on in theory to like stop the phone calls that were going to the IED.
Yep.
Right. And the moment it was taken off, it was just perfect timing, effectively.
Exactly. And our unit was a PLS unit, which is a palletized loading system. So it picks the conics up on its own so that you don't have to have all the chews and all the things in place to make a conics move.
Yeah.
And you can drop and go. The big thing was the convoy commander vehicles were never those. It was very evident that your convoy commander vehicle was the Humvee that's driving in the middle of the convoy with all the little radio stuff.
Sure.
So we weren't necessarily the smartest at that time. And I know that they got smarter. I know the vehicles got better. So if they learn from the stuff that we experienced, that's all we can ask for. And the fact that we're all here is what we can ask for.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. What was, how many days left? I mean, last mission, but how many days between that mission and going home did you have?
11
days. You remember it very clearly.
And the interesting thing is I played roller derby. That's kind of what I did to balance the PTSD. I was struggling, and my dad said, why don't you try this? Because I'd skated my whole life. So I played roller derby here in Austin, and I made my number 12 because the 12th day is the day you're home, the day you're with your. Not only that, my derby name was DeBella DeBall, which is the belle of the ball, who had to be home at midnight. So it kind of all rolled in together to be a fun number to reflect kind of a situation that
totally
we wouldn't necessarily be here for.
Yeah. What was the first thing that you did when you got home?
I ate Taco Bell.
You ate Taco Bell?
Yes.
Nice.
You just crave food. I mean, while we were there, that's when Pizza Hut came into Anaconda. There's a lot of stuff that came in. you wanted a good cup of coffee and something that wasn't made there.
Yeah. Yep.
Or what was
Something
it? I
without
don't know.
some sand in the bite.
Barley. Say again?
Something without sand in it.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome.
And real milk.
And real milk. Yeah. All right. So you finish up your deployment, you come home. What does that look like? You immediately drop back to the reserves and you just go back to normal life? I mean, how did that transition back from deployment go for you?
That was a rough one for me because we were told if you had anything, take care of it when you get home to the VA. If anything's bothering you, because if not, you could be here 6 months and it's going to be 6 months longer until you see your family. And so I knew I was covered because I had TRICARE. So I just was like, I'll just take care of it when I get home. Of course, I didn't know what kind of battle I had in front of me, but I mean, that's my doing. I should have handled that differently, but it took a little bit to reintegrate with family. I was fortunate because my husband had already deployed, so he understood a little bit of what I was going through.
Okay. But
our first Christmas home was interesting. I was asleep in the car. I wake up and I tell him contact right. Because you just don't think, you're just in that, you wake up from a dream.
Yeah.
And he's like, okay. And then we were debating on who was going up in the sunroof. And then we realized that we weren't overseas. And we thought it was funny and laughed the rest of the way to Christmas dinner and started telling people about it. And his uncle, who was a Vietnam War veteran, was like, hey, you guys can talk to me about that kind of stuff, but your family thinks you're crazy.
Yeah, totally.
But I was definitely fortunate that he had deployed and my brother had deployed. So I had people that I could talk to in my immediate community that I know not everybody has.
Yeah. Yeah, it makes sense. What was your thought process as far as like a career at that point? You come home and were you were thinking one and done? How did you make the decision to up for another 3?
I wasn't done yet. I didn't know why I wasn't done yet, but I wasn't done yet. And that's when they started having me, I would end up being on AT orders, which is annual training orders for almost 8 weeks to 3 months, because I was in the unit I was in. We had a lot of older gentlemen that couldn't handle the transition to the computers, which was big at what was going on during that time. So we would come in and we'd have to write all the POI was already in place, which is program of instruction, but we still had to come in and make sure everything was working. Technology was working. All the paperwork was set up for the courses that we were teaching. So we had augment at Fort Leonard Wood. We called it Lost in the Woods. Then we would go to Fort McClellan, which is in Alabama. And we would go and train those locations. So I would go in early, get all the paperwork set up, go in with, sometimes the first sergeant would come with me, or he and I would be conferencing, and we would run these ATs. So a typical AT is 2 weeks, and mine would be 3 months, because I'd have to do the paperwork from the beginning, run them through the whole course, and the paperwork at the end.
Gotcha.
But I liked it. I liked it. And I was able to have people ready for combat because we had already experienced it. So those that were coming in and needing the training could know what it was like from people who had really experienced it, not those that had just did it via the book or at training. Gotcha.
And you were still reserved, so you were simultaneously starting to pursue a civilian career at this time?
Yes. So while overseas, I ended up getting a huge rash, and we didn't know what it was from. So of course they pump you with steroids, and I was on steroids for almost 6 years straight.
Wow.
But what I did while I was in was I was like, there's got to be a way to heal the body without medication.
Yeah.
So I went to massage therapy school before I finished the second bachelor's and went on to the master's. And I was a massage therapist for a while, and it was really nice and it was really good, but I wasn't good at separating I would get frustrated in things when I was working on people because I would take on their emotions. I don't know if everybody experiences that, but I do. And I decided that really wasn't where I could make the impact. And that's when I went back to finish the other degrees to really figure out how I can help veterans in the most raw part of where they are.
Yeah, that makes sense. I think I think a lot of people expect to, kind of transition out. And I know you weren't out yet totally, but like,
Mhm.
I think a lot of veterans expect to be able to just kind of like find their groove in their civilian career the first one they try. Um,
Yep.
and I don't know if it's unique. It seems like most people that just go to college kind of just like get a job and then they kind of like generally stay in that career. Some of them change it up, but I feel like there's a churn for veterans that are getting out to start a career, and they do a couple different careers before they finally find the one.
I think you're right. From what I experienced, and I'm in all the veterans groups on Facebook and a lot of other places, and I think that they're like a hamster on a wheel.
Hmm.
And then they're like, oh no, I'm going to a whole different. They don't just change careers, they like
Start all
change,
over.
yeah, start all over again, and they don't know where they want to start. And a lot of
Hmm.
them are starting businesses, which is
Hmm.
great, and they're they have that entrepreneurial spirit, but they almost don't want to think about the things that made them good in the military and how they
Hmm.
can transition them into the civilian part to make
Hmm.
them even more successful in that space.
Why do you think that is?
I I think some of them they just want to leave it behind,
Hmm.
and some of them just don't even know how to tap into what it is,
Mm.
what it was, because they're so used to somebody telling them what it was
Yeah.
that they don't know that they can trust that innate gut feeling about what it is.
Yeah. Interesting. That reminds that reminds me. It was one of my first jobs after the Marine Corps. So with like a marketing company. And like there was this big volunteer day and I don't know, we are going to like into the woods to do something and there was like a bunch of people. And for whatever reason the manager picked or I guess the volunteer leader that was like local to whatever we were doing. He's like, "Hey, like
Mm-hmm.
count everybody and to make sure that everybody comes out of the woods with us." And I'm like, you know, the only way I know how to do that is get everybody to line up and count off, you know, and
I would have done the same
and
thing.
nobody. It was just like the most awkward thing because I was like, I was doing it the only way I knew how, which was like talking
Mm-hmm.
to a bunch of PFCs, Lance Corporals, whatever, like count off, and everybody then knew how to do it. And this place was just like nobody. It was just I felt like an idiot, basically, because nobody does that in the real world.
Yep.
So I don't know why it just made me think of that, but yeah, maybe I just like left that behind me after that went so poorly. So other
I
people
did
probably do
that
that
when I
too.
was when I was training in roller derby. So instantaneously, I became a trainer
Yeah.
because I had all that roller skating experience. And I remember telling people to count off, and they looked at me like I was from a different language or a different country, speaking a different language.
Yeah.
Like I was like, no, it's literally one,
I know.
two, one, two, and then you feel mean because you're like
Mhm.
talking to them like they're they're not.
Condescending.
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't want to talk to them very condescendingly, and I found myself doing that, and it was because I had gone back to something, and then you chastise yourself, and then you put that away in a different. You're just like, wait a second, I can't talk to people like that. We're not in the army anymore.
Totally.
But I definitely transitioned some of those skills from the military into training because whenever I was in charge of a team, we won, and that's because I don't pay money to lose.
Mm.
And that's just the way my mind works. So we're going to work hard. Everybody's going to work out outside of this, and we're going to work hard and put our energy towards it. And this is what we have to do, and this is how you have to, you backwards plan so you can get to where you need to be. And we definitely had a lot. I overtrained us, but that's all right.
Yeah. No, absolutely. Um, so you after you did another 3 years, and like during this 3 years, you're working on your other bachelor's degree. You're doing massage therapy.
Mhm.
You've got your hands in a lot of different baskets. What was
Yep.
what was the indicator for you that it was like it was time. It was time to move on and do something else.
I just wasn't feeling fulfilled.
Mm.
I like at first I thought I was not done in the military. And then I was like, okay, well, massage isn't fulfilling me. Going and getting this bachelor's degree, yeah, I can do stuff to help people. That'll help. And this, and I just nothing was scratching the itch, and I just didn't feel like I was. The military wasn't it, and I didn't know what else was. So
Yeah.
I was just throwing spaghetti at the wall, until I really was like, wait a second. I got my first associates, which I didn't talk about earlier, was in broadcast television. And I was going to go in and do broadcast television. So by the time I got to the bachelor's and finished the master's and knew that getting into the VA and making change from within the VA, that was my altruistic goal for my master's degree, was to make change within the VA. I realized that system's too corrupt. I need to create a platform that I can help people outside of it.
Yeah. Noble goal, but maybe not realistic, It's going to take something a little bit more.
Exactly. Yeah. My little master's degree was not going to make a dent in anything that was going on there. I mean, I could, because I could be the squeaky wheel, but that's only going to make it, because it's so separated and disjointed, it's only going to make an impact in the location I'm at.
Yeah.
So because the roller derby was a nonprofit, I started helping them with their marketing. Cool. And then I started working for some marketing companies and doing some things, some for pay, some for not pay. In 2017, I was still doing a little bit of massage for the people that were skaters. But other than that, I was like, what can I do? So I started my business, Low Pro, and I was helping coaches out market their business, which is great. There's a lot of money in it, but I was doing that so that I could help the veterans with the money that I had, that I was earning. Okay. And one of the coaches finally sat me down and she was like, look, I love that you work for me, and I still help her out with her marketing, but you really need to feel what feeds your soul, not do this to help that, because they're getting the leftovers. They're not getting the real you. So that's why I pivoted my business to actually start doing business intensives, where you get in, you look at what they're doing in marketing, what we can do to help them, what they're doing even in business, so we can look at their systems and processes and see what's functioning. Keep it, delegate it, or let it go. What is helping your business, what's not. And it's been really a successful way to help businesses, especially veteran-owned businesses, get their platform and see how they can spread the voice. We talked a little bit. Most of them, they love what they do so much. Their mess is their mission, which I now say their miracle is their mission. Yeah. Or their mess is their miracle, because it's what gets you to what feeds you. But you're so in love with your story, you don't think about what it is that the other people that you're trying to attract want. Yeah. You're not telling it in a way that they can feel it, they can see it. And you're not giving it all the gusto, that you're giving them the emotion that they can feel your passion for it.
Interesting. So I want to back up a little bit, just so, if anybody's thinking about like trying to totally understand what it is that you do and how you can help them. Your ideal client is a veteran entrepreneur.
Yes.
Does it matter what type of business they are operating?
Absolutely not, because most of the core of what the issue is there's two things. It's systems and processes, or their message. We need to tweak their message so that it's attractive to the audience. Okay.
And so whether it be e-commerce, brick and mortar, podcasts, landscaping, anything, and you go
name it, we can help with it.
And you go, I mean, what does that look like as a system for you, like an onboarding? It's like you interview them and say, hey, what's the process from, customer to order fulfillment, or, I guess whatever that looks like for the business model.
So usually what we do is we start out with an interview to make sure that there are some people that are just not ideal to work with, because they're not honed in on what they want yet. And I don't want them to, if they need me to help them coach it through, that's different than a business intensive. Yeah. We can get that coaching and take you through it. But if you are a business that's established and you're needing help because you're just not reaching the audience and you're not making the dollars, after that initial interview, we send you a whole bunch of questions, and have you give us a little insight into the back end. Then we re-interview the morning of the date, the business intensive. And then we just go through line. And usually we've done a lot of pre-work. For me, that's the research on the back end, who their competitors are, who they think their competitors are, but who are actually their competitors otherwise. And then looking at what they're doing and how we can take it and turn it on its head to make it truly effective for them.
Gotcha. Interesting.
So you look at it like a mission.
Yeah.
If you want to make it simple, like the end goal is you want that successful mission. Now you got a backwards plan for it.
Yeah.
So what are the questions you need to know at the beginning to get your end goal? And usually it's probably about 50 questions that we ask, that some are yes, no, some are grading scale, but others are, you give us the detail on this. Access to some documents. If you're using a project management software, Asana, Trello,
Mm-hmm.
anything. Most people end up using Google Docs, which is great. But when you're into a level of project management, you need a little bit more.
Yeah.
And there's some good free ones out there, which I mean, Trello is a really good free one. I use ClickUp for my business, but Trello's, you can have up to 10 Trello boards for free. So
Interesting.
why not use what's free? And if you're familiar with like a Jira system or anything like that, it operates like that. It's a Kanban, so you can move people down the line.
Okay.
They've done this here.
Yeah, man, I had to pick your brain afterwards because I'm like, how do I implement some of these, more technological systems for my 9 to 5 business, and I'm like, man, is it worth it right now? So
So one of the things that we did was we pivoted to Go High Level, which is, I don't know if you've heard of Go High Level.
go high level.
Yeah, or High Level. A lot of people call it that. So what it is it's a CRM, but it
Yeah.
handles, you can create funnels in there, you can create websites in there, you can create anything. You and I can talk afterwards about this because I can create a sub account for you so you can check it out and just play in there. But you can create workflows so it lifts a lot of the burden, which is what stops most business owners if it's a systems and process thing.
Yeah.
They are so overwhelmed and don't know where to go that they're just constantly on the hamster wheel.
Yeah.
Or they don't and the reason why I mentioned the project board is they don't have a prioritization, so they get lost. So they're just constantly doing task here, task here, task here, rather than, okay, I need a funnel because I need to get a bunch of new podcast guests and I need to do some outreach here so I can create this workflow that reaches out to people, talks to people, and does all this for me, and I just need to monitor it.
Yeah.
And then I can go into working on the next tier of work that I need to do.
It is incredibly difficult to they say to work on your business and not in your business, and it's incredibly difficult to do. And I didn't have much appreciation for that up until pretty recently. And it's like, well, because it feels like working in your business is the only thing that makes you money. It's like it's kind of what makes you money right now. But if you want to make more money, you have to work on your business. If you want to scale, you have to work on your business. Otherwise, you're going to be working in it and just chasing the dollars forever.
Right. And you're chasing this amount of dollars where you could be chasing this amount of dollars.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's hard to see the forest through the trees. Yeah.
And that's what the business intensive is for, is so that we can go in and help you, because most business owners have a lot of things in the right place. It's just a matter of where is it that we can plug this hole and create a funnel to get. And I'm using funnel kind of across the board, but there's funnel of focus, there's funnel for a landing page, there's funnel of a lot of things. But what can we do to lift this burden and get your business moving forward so then we can do these next level of work?
So how do you know? Yeah, now I'm just gonna start asking you questions that I'm personally curious about. So
go right ahead.
So my 9 to 5 business, I have a commercial real estate appraisal firm, and so it's like without knowing some of the intricacies of that business, how are you going to be able to how are you able to come in and set up systems? I mean, are all the systems effectively the same and you just kind of plug and play? It's really that simple?
So a lot of that is in place, and all we have to do is actually just tailor it to you. There's like when you're in a real estate investment, there's certain communication you have to have. That's your language. And I know there's certain things that you can and cannot say because for legal reasons.
Yeah.
But I've got people in my network that is their specialty is real estate. And there's a lot of it when you look at the working systems, it is down to you don't have the follow through funnels that you need in order to lift the burden off of you.
Interesting. Okay.
We'll chat afterwards and I'll
Yeah.
get you into high level and I'll add the real estate plugin stuff so that you can look at it. It may not be what works for you, but 95% of the time it is what works for people.
Yeah. Cause I have, I've looked at different CRMs, like whatever it is, Monday, Trello is one I forgot about. And I'm like, like the hurdle to actually implement it and get it to the point where like our system is now, and while our system is archaic, um, it works. And so I'm like, is it really, it's always hard to take the step
Mhm.
backwards in order to ultimately move forwards. Um,
But
what,
sometimes you don't have to. Sometimes we can create some zaps to take it
mhm,
off, to take it to the next level without you having to disrupt everything you have going
yeah.
to get it to the next point.
Okay.
You
Interesting.
don't necessarily have to change everything, but there are like marketing companies or marketing your small business is the other thing that people struggle with a lot.
Mhm,
And that's usually because they've got it in, a Google sheet and they're trying to manage everything through a Google sheet. Well, that's great. It still doesn't get the content up,
mhm,
and it's often hard for people to visualize what they've actually created looking at it on a Google sheet.
mm,
But we can create that and put that with an approval process into high level and get all that stuff together where it takes it from the Google sheet to high level, and then the owner or whomever you put as the approver can go in and approve it based on what they see or make the edits that they think they need to make or
interesting.
leave a comment in a task.
Okay. Okay. How much of this do you think is like tactical versus mental?
That's a hard one. That's definitely a hard one because I think it depends on who it is.
Okay.
Um, in your situation, based on because you've got it working and it's working for you, and you're looking at what you need to do for the next step, I would think that that's more mental because you see that you want to get to somewhere, but you already have the things in place, and we can make those function.
Yeah.
The question would be getting into it is it
Mm,
functioning optimally, or can we pivot and make it work the way you want it to work?
totally. Yeah. I mean, and for context, the systems in place now were inherited when acquiring the firm, and so I didn't create them. And then I think back to like, well, how good am I at creating systems? I'm like, I've created some for the podcast, for the Airbnb, for this, that, and the other thing, but like at smaller scale. And I don't have to incorporate other people into my systems, which is it feels like a whole nother component of creating
Mhm.
systems is like, can somebody else understand your system? So, and then I'm like, well, that seems like a headache. So yeah, I would agree. It's probably a mental barrier.
Yeah, and then there's the idea. The nice thing is when you use the newer systems, there's automations in place,
Yeah,
and automations are really what allow you to scale
true.
because you take the human out of it, and if their job is just to monitor and turn dials up and turn them back, you're great.
Yeah.
Now, if it's me taking it, and I could talk for hours on this, so I don't want to go too far into it.
Oh,
In general, what we can do is we can look at your systems and see if they're streamlined. If they're streamlined and there's just a few changes, then we go in and we really help you create. If everything's working like it is and you need help with just a little bit of marketing,
yeah.
we then credit you back some of your business intensive money or say, hey, we'll create a month's worth of content that you can actually stretch out to a year. We work with you to make sure that you get the best out of a business intensive. We have only had to do that twice in the year and a half I've done it, but
Cool.
they were people who were in a situation like you are where they had it and they were working, and we talked about changing out some systems for them and changing to a different platform, and it absolutely froze
Mm,
the owner, and I didn't want to create that kind of disconnect between them and their business. So
yeah.
what we did was we gave them a few finesse tweaks to finesse what they had, and then made other things work for them so that they could move forward and feel like they got what they could out of the business intensive.
Gotcha. Makes sense. Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Well, to get back on a little bit, I mean, well, not really on track. That's kind of what we are here to talk about. But
Yep.
I'll be very curious to dive a little bit deeper on this. Without, maybe I don't know if it's, who knows if it's boring the audience, but I find it fascinating because I'm very curious as to your experience with that. So I look forward to that.
I love it. I mean, my business really pivoted when I decided to start using Go High Level. And the only reason why is because I could be a one-woman show. I now have a VA that helps me with a lot of the stuff. But as a whole, I was a one-woman show, but I was still reaching the people I needed to reach because I had the automations in place. I don't even have to think about, I mean, you have to think a little bit about invoicing, make sure everything's going the right way. But as soon as you get the things in place, create the tag, the workflows in, goes off like it's supposed to, the texts go out, everything's doing what it needs to. And you have more time left in your day to work on your business, not in your business.
Totally. Awesome.
So working on your business versus working in your business is definitely the hardest. I had to set up a power hour with one of my friends who actually is a real estate agent in South Carolina. And we get on in the morning and we spend 2 hours, and you're not allowed to work in your business. You are only allowed to work on your business in those 2 hours.
Cool. I like it. I like it. All right. I'm curious, you've been out of the Army for how many years now?
I got out in 2009. So
2009. Okay. 15
years.
As throughout your transition, throughout your time in, what have been some of the best programs that you found that you want to just like shake people and say, like, use this? Don't
the big thing,
pass this up.
I have two. The Red, White, and Blue was the first one that I joined. And that it just gets veterans up and moving and gets them to community. You do all sorts of things. You do runs together, whether it's community runs or they'll organize something in, I'm trying to think, they'll do Spartans together.
Is it a nonprofit or is it like
it's a nonprofit? RWB, you'll see that, and you'll see Red, White, and Blue.
Okay.
And there's a couple groups that I've met. I do Spartan races. That's kind of what I've been doing, which is a lot of fun. If you miss that part of the military, it's a great way to get it. In the obstacle courses. The wins for me is I walk by an obstacle course or an obstacle and I'll say, I'm not just doing this today. I don't force myself to do something that I don't feel safe or I feel like it could hurt myself doing in that moment.
Totally.
The only thing I can't do right now is the monkey bars because they rotate and my brain can't process around it, but I've done all the other obstacles. That's the only one that has the best of me just yet. But the other is the Pink Berets. Pink Berets is a women's organization that started in San Antonio, and their whole focus is helping women find community post-service. And a lot of that is because there is so much sexual assault and sexual trauma that happens to females that serve. I'm not saying it doesn't happen to anyone else. It's just where they weren't believed, or there's that quid pro quo that was happening, and a lot of their PTSD comes from that. And this is allowing them a community of like people that females that can support you. They also are really good. They have connections with mental health professionals. So if you're beyond what the group can support, they can refer you out, and those people are doing that pro bono, or the organization is covering it.
Wow. Okay. Those are good to know. I hadn't heard of either one of those. So
I've read RWB is a really good one because you connect through physical fitness, which is kind of what everybody joins. Or everybody connects within the military, whether you love it or hate it, it's still part of what you do.
Totally. It's interesting that the two you mentioned are not actually VA programs, but nonprofits that you believe in. So that's awesome. Because there are so many nonprofits for veterans, like in different niches, and I'm like, I don't look into them because there's so many of them, and I'm like, it's just another one. So it's really cool to hear too that you've got personal experience with that you would vouch for, recommend.
And another one, and if you do like races like Spartans and whatnot, there's More Heart Than Scars.
More Heart Than Scars.
And that is an organization that they have people staffed 24 hours a day that help with military members that are suicidal and homicidal.
Mm.
And they they're available, they do community events, but the biggest thing is that it's a real person, it's somebody who has served. Yeah. So it's not just, you're not talking to somebody who doesn't understand where you're coming from, to an extent. Obviously we don't know everybody's stories, but sure, they're there to support you and just be there.
Sure. Okay. More Heart Than Scars. Good to know. Yeah. Awesome. How about I'm often curious. This one, I'm sticking to the questions more this time because you've actually answered some of them. So I always have like mixed feelings about the whole discount thing, because I feel like there are some people that are like, oh, you don't join the military for the discounts. But I'm like, well, if they're there, why would I not use it? So what are your favorites, veteran and or military?
My absolute favorite is
Vet Tix, which is another one. When I was reading that, I'm like, man, I didn't know about that. It sounded familiar.
So I have gone to see Kane Brown, Carrie Underwood, Lizzo for $6, because all you have to do is pay the transaction fee.
No kidding. Mm-hmm. So some other organizations paying for it, or
so usually it's Ticketmaster donates a bunch, which thank goodness, because they take enough they can donate. Yeah. But there are a lot of the artists, especially country artists, donate tickets to it. Then you can go see races, monster truck, anything that's going on in the community. You can look to see if it's there or in an area that you're going to visit. Very good. There's tickets available. Like my friend went to see every Texans game before last year on Vet Tix, and they were decent seats. They weren't nosebleeds. They were pretty close.
Yeah. Good to know.
Yeah. That's a good one. I am a firm believer in ID Me. I go on there and see what kind of veteran discounts there are often.
ID Me. I only know that as the login tool to get into the VA portals.
Yep.
But there's
physically go in there and log in, and using the same login you use to get into the veterans portals, if that's what you do. If not, you can create an account and everything there. And because you're a veteran, there are certain ones that, like Chevy, depending on what you are, or GM offers veteran discounts, and they'll use it through there. Okay. A lot of stuff there. Any store that's in the mall, you can get a discount pretty much from that if you want to shop. Or no, young people don't know what malls are.
They still have those around some places, I think. But
yeah, we have them here, and that's where a lot of people go just to walk around the air conditioning. I'm in Texas; it's hot.
Yeah, fair.
So you get to go in the air. Yeah. But there's also, that's a big one. My husband he asks everybody, "Do you have a veterans discount?" Because we're both veterans. It's a great thing. Yeah, most of them do, and if they don't, sometimes we don't go there. Sometimes we do. It depends on if there's a competitor that we're debating on what we want.
Sure.
But in general, Vet Tix is my favorite. If I'm going to say what gives me the best discounts, it's that, because I can go to something that I would typically pay $300, $400, $500 for. Yeah. And I can get it for $6.
Yeah, totally.
Seems like a good discount to me.
Totally. I like it. All right. Then lastly, what is the most influential book you've read?
There's been a couple. The biggest one, I can't remember. Her name was Gail Teshmak Lemon. She wrote, it's just a book on war. Ashley Story, the untold story of women soldiers at war and special ops on the battlefield. It kind of just gives the female's perspective to everything that's going on. And they're short stories within the bigger story. Okay. I am a firm believer that if you decide you don't want to finish reading a book, that means the book gave you all the data it needs to give you, and you don't have to force yourself to read it. Yeah. That one, I didn't read all the stories, but they resonated with me. And the ones that I didn't read, I just physically couldn't read.
Yeah.
Because it just evoked too much within me and I just couldn't. But it's a good one. There's great books out there. I mean, if you need to do selling, Joyful Selling is a great book. It takes a less of a bro tactic selling and puts the heart at the front of what you're offering. Up value before you offer the sale. So it's just kind of puts things on its end.
Got it.
And then the coach that I would do a lot of work for, Jennifer Dawn, just released the Apple Stand, Falling in Love with Your Business Again, which is kind of a great one.
Cool.
Which that's me putting in a plug for her, but also it's just really gives you a short roadmap on how to fall in love with your business again. And I was kind of feeling a little stale when it came out. So it was a really good, perfectly timed book for me.
Nice. Awesome. Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. Well, I appreciate you coming out. I appreciate you sharing your story and everything that you've done. Where can people connect with you if they want to reach out for business consulting and coaching and all these
anything things? DeBella DeBall Designs. I'm DeBellaDeBallDesigns.com, DeBellaDeBall.com, and that's DeBella DeBall Designs, spelled the right way.
Perfect.
And that was my roller derby name, like I said, but I'm not on all social channels. You'll either talk to me or my VA, Ann, and we are here to answer questions. We're here to help. If you just need a quick one-to-one because you are struggling with your business and you can't really do a full intensive, we can sit down and do a 30-minute strategy session with you just to kind of see where you're at and give you some pointers to get you going in the right direction.
Cool. Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure that your socials and your website and stuff are linked in the description so anybody can reach out.
All right. Thank you so much for your time today, Jason. This is great.
Thank you, Lisa. We'll talk soon.
Talk soon.
Thanks for tuning in, everybody. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode with Lisa. If you guys want to connect with her, follow the link in the description. She's got a couple resources down there. And she named off several nonprofits that I had not previously heard of. And so if you guys are looking into either Red, White, and Blue or Pink Berets, those are both sound like great organizations that you guys can get involved with or utilize for your own needs. And so I hope you guys enjoy this episode. And I'm trying to be a bit more active on social media, Instagram specifically for my personal account, because I got sick of making memes and doing things that were not synonymous with my life on the Military Bottom Line Instagram. So I got rid of that. So I don't know. I'm just making all this up as I go. If you guys want to follow me on my personal account on Instagram, it's @Jason Berets. You can find me there. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.